Tired of the everyday grind? Want to get away from it all?
Descent into paradise.
Florida.
Greetings, everybody, from sunny Florida. Here's wishing you the best of everything. And it's my personal belief that the best of everything comes from right down here.
Well, hey, everybody, this is Steph from JustADayInParadise.com, and thanks for tuning into this week's episode of Just a Podcast in Paradise. Me and the Dip crew love living in the Sunshine State, and it's our goal to help you plan for your very own day in paradise. Follow along as we explore the Keys, theme parks, springs, and everything in between. As you know, we're always going to have a drink for you, and today, I'm enjoying some holiday coffee. We're ready if you are, so kick up your feet, throw on your shades, and let's take a trip to paradise. All right, everybody. So much like when it's time to wake up early on vacation and, 6 o'clock, maybe the sun's not up yet. Maybe nobody else is up yet. I find myself here by myself. So you are with me and Cricket in the studio today, and we will have a guest on a little bit later, but I wanted to first paint a picture for you. So this month is Manatee Awareness Month, and if you follow us on YouTube at Just a Day in Paradise, you know that we've been out swimming with manatees before. And if you haven't done it, first of all, it's an incredible experience, and we're going to share with you a little bit later where you can do that in our beautiful Sunshine State. So manatees are always in the water around the state. They can be out in the ocean because they can go out into salt water, and from April through October, you might catch one, you might find one here or there, but when things start to get a little bit chillier, like they are now, right now it is let's say, cool 73 degrees outside, the manatees start to head into where it's a little bit warmer and the temperatures stay constant throughout the year. So the manatee season actually starts November 15th and runs through March 31st. So that's when you'll see huge congregations of them throughout the springs, and where it really makes the most sense for you to try and go out on one of these trips. So I thought, since it is Manatee Awareness Month, and since we are kicking off manatee season, I'm sure you guys have a lot of questions about where you can see them, how you can hang out with them, and what exactly some of those trips might be like. So we are going to take a quick break, and then we are going to have on a manatee expert to teach us all about them and how you can safely observe them. Hang tight. Okay, Garrett, it's time for bed.
No. Wait. Can you tell me a story first?
All right, one story, and then it's nighty-night for you. Do you remember the one about Meggy locks and the 3 cocktails?
Oh my gosh, I love this one.
Once upon a time, there was a little girl named Meggy Locks. She went for a walk on the beach. Pretty soon, she came upon a tiki bar. She sat down in the bar, and immediately she was served 3 beautiful cocktails. Meggy Locks can never resist a free drink. She tasted the first one and realized the straw was plastic.
No, plastic is terrible for the environment. I can't drink this.
So, she tasted the second drink.
Gross. The straw's all soggy, and all I taste is paper.
So, she tasted the last cocktail.
This hay straw is perfect.
She said happily and enjoyed the rest of her delicious margarita. Well, Garrett, what's the moral of the story?
That when you use hay straws, all natural, 100% biodegradable, gluten-free, and never soggy straws, you're actually doing your part to help take care of our planet. They can be tossed right in the compost bin after and will break down naturally and return to the circle of life.
That's right, big guy.
Good night, Steph.
Good night, Garrett. We can all sleep a little easier thanks to hay straws. Visit haystraws.com to find out more. Okay, welcome back, everybody. And as you know, manatees are Florida's official state marine mammal. And while they've recently come off the endangered species list, much needs to be done to continue to educate the public and protect their habitat. So that's where today's guest comes in. Save the Manatee Club is an award-winning national nonprofit and membership-based organization that was established in 1981 by our former governor, Bob Graham, and none other than singer-songwriter Jimmy Buffett. Their mission is to protect the manatees and their habitat, not only for us, but for generations to come. And Ally Greco is Save the Manatee Club's communication and outreach manager, and we couldn't be more excited to have you on today, Ally. How are you doing this morning?
Hi, Steph. Doing great. I'm really excited to be here today.
Yeah, we're so excited to have you. And it's kind of perfect because I believe it's Manatee Awareness Month. Is that right?
Yes. Happy Manatee Awareness Month. The entire month of November is Manatee Awareness Month. And that was originally declared because November is the time of year where we'll start seeing more manatees all over Florida as they come down here to spend the winter months.
Yeah, they're part of our snowbird club, too.
Oh, yeah, they're definitely snowbirds. They love the warm water down here, and they actually need it to survive. So every November, it's a great reminder for people to just be aware that, manatees are coming back for the winter and keep an eye out for them on the water.
Cool. And I think we're going to dive into a little bit more of that stuff specifically because so many of our listeners aren't just from Florida, but they actually come here to visit us. So we want to make sure that everybody stays safe and gets to enjoy manatees, but also help protect the manatees. So tell us more about what you do to help save the manatees.
Right. So I'm the communications and outreach manager here. So Save the Manatee Club, as you mentioned, one of our missions is to protect manatees. And part of the way we do that is just through public awareness and education. So we'll distribute signs and other materials to people all over Florida or all over the country who want to learn more about manatees and help others learn more too. I also will coordinate everything with the media. If there's a question about something that happened with the manatees, usually people end up calling me here at Save the Manatee Club. So it's really fun. I get to talk about my favorite marine mammals all day long.
That's so cool. And I read a little bit on your website, which I believe is savethemanatee.org. You each have a short little bio there. And I saw that you actually fell in love with manatees at Crystal River.
Yes. So the first time that I ever saw manatees in real life was during a visit to Crystal River about 5 years ago with my mom. She said, hey, there's these manatees that are up here in these springs in the winter. Let's go check them out. And it was just a magical experience, as I'm sure everyone who's had that experience can attest to. So ever since then, I've just been, so fascinated by these animals. And now I get to help protect them every day as part of my job.
Yeah, that's so cool. I mostly grew up in Florida. So manatees are always, you see the keep your wake down signs, so you don't hit a manatee if you're on a boat. And, we grow up learning about, how little things that we can do to protect them and why they're important. But until you actually have an opportunity to either, get up close and personal at Crystal River or even just observe them, from a viewing area in one of the natural springs, they're such a special creature and they're so, I don't know, they're like gentle giants.
They really are. And, part of what makes that experience of seeing them in these springs so interesting is because the springs themselves, this habitat that's so vitally important to them, are just beautiful. I mean, no other place in the country can you find these crystal clear waters and warm waters all winter long. And then they're filled with these huge 10-foot, 1,200-pound mammals that are just the most chill, gentle creatures. It's really a sight to see.
Yeah, it kind of makes you chill out too a little bit and slow down.
Oh, yeah.
So
yeah, it's definitely mesmerizing.
Yeah, for sure. So in our last week's episode, we learned a little bit about our mangroves and our coral reef systems, but I would imagine that the springs are a very unique ecosystem in and of themselves. So how do the manatees really fit into that environment?
Right. So manatees can be found in all kinds of water environments. So they can be in freshwater, saltwater, brackish water, coastal areas, springs, rivers, you name it. But these warm water springs themselves are really critically important to manatees. The water coming out of these springs is coming out from an underground aquifer, the Floridian aquifer. It's kind of like an underground cavern that keeps the water at this constant temperature all year round. So the water will be usually somewhere between 68 to 72 degrees all year round. If you're there in the winter, it's warm and steamy and it's amazing. If you're there in the summer, it feels a lot cooler than our 100-degree humid air.
Yeah.
So manatees, they are gentle giants, like you said, but they don't have that blubber or body fat that animals like whales or seals do in colder environments. They actually need these warm water temperatures to survive. Without them, they would get all kinds of diseases caused by the cold temperatures. So that's why you'll find them flocking to these springs. It's almost like a little oasis, a little manatee jacuzzi in the winter for them to stay warm in.
That's so neat because I knew that they needed the warm water and I knew that they migrated and especially like you can see them lingering around power plants and things, but I didn't realize it was because they didn't have the fat to insulate them.
No, they're big, but they're just big bones. They don't really have that insulating blubber that other marine mammals do.
Oh, that's so interesting. Are there any other like fun facts that might surprise some of our listeners?
Sure. I mean, manatees are just interesting, curious animals. They've been called sea cows because they're herbivores. You really never see anything like them. But actually, their closest living like relative in the animal kingdom on land is the elephant. Oh. If you actually look at a picture of a manatee and an elephant side by side, you can see the similarities, not only with their gray skin, their small kind of eyes, but manatees, when they feed, they use their upper lip. It's called a prehensile upper lip to grab vegetation and feed. It's kind of like an elephant's trunk. And manatees actually have little toenails on their flippers, if you look closely, that kind of look like a big elephant foot. So they are somewhere down the line related.
That's so interesting. And I would imagine, too, like an elephant, they can just eat all day long.
Oh, yeah. They could eat all day long. I mean, like I said, they don't really have that blubbery fat. They're not feeding on fish like a big whale is. So they have to just constantly graze on all kinds of aquatic vegetation just to keep it moving.
Yeah, and I love how if you've had the opportunity to go snorkeling in Crystal River with them, and you watch them, I don't know if it's called grazing, but it's kind of what it's like. And you can hear them like crunching on the lettuce, and it's pretty loud. It's really cute.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I saw your video of you guys got to see some manatees feeding, which was really cool. And I did want to commend you for really taking that passive observation stance while being in the water with them. I could see that everyone in your group was giving the manatees a lot of space and just kind of floating there and watching them, which is extremely important to do when we're actually in the water with manatees.
Yeah, thank you. And that kind of brings me to my next question because, we've been talking a lot about Crystal River just in this conversation, but we've shared about Crystal River with our listeners before. To my knowledge, that is the only place in the world where you can legally, safely, and appropriately interact with manatees in the wild. Is that correct?
Yep. And here in Florida, that's one of the only places where you could do a tour that would include getting in the water and snorkeling with manatees in a safe and respectful way as possible.
Yeah, and we've been out with a couple different excursions out there, and they're all really, really great about, going through that orientation with you, teaching you how to safely, like to your point, observe and, keep a safe distance. And, but obviously, if someone saw a manatee in the wild, not at Crystal River, they're really cute and they're tempting to touch. So what do you do if you're not in one of these tours and you're not in, a spring? How do you not approach a manatee? Like, how do you safely give it its space, and how can you safely observe it out of the water?
Well, what's important to remember is these are wild animals. And even though they're gentle and they seem like a cow or something cute you'd see in a petting zoo, they're wild animals. And it's important to remember not to touch them and give them space. First of all, just anything like touching or petting or feeding manatees, not only does it disrupt their natural behavior patterns, but it's also illegal. It's punishable by fines, or you could even go to prison. Manatees are protected under both state and federal law, so like that's something to just keep in mind. You're actually breaking the law if you do it. But in a more logical sense, it kind of tames them. So if you're petting a manatee and you're giving it positive reinforcement for approaching a human and coming up to your boat, if you kind of get them used to that and think that it's a good thing to go up to humans, which maybe you think, I'm not really doing anything wrong. Look, it likes it. It's so cute. But what if it sees your boat and then it thinks all boats will give me the pets, and they'll go up to another boat that's speeding. It might go out into a high risk area. It could, leave a warm water site, be in the cold water, trying to look for that. Or it could go up to someone who's not as good as you, someone who might want to harm them or mess with them. So we really don't want to disrupt the natural behavior of an animal. It's the same reason why we don't feed wild animals. It's not part of their natural behavior. Something that we see, unfortunately, people do with manatees, and they think it's fine, and they've been doing it for years, or they used to do it when they were growing up, and it's so cute, is giving fresh water to manatees. People will spray hoses off their dock, or think that it's cute that manatees like to drink water. While they do drink fresh water, they can find fresh water on their own. They're wild animals. They don't need people to give them water.
Right.
And, it seems harmless, but again, it's sort of reinforcing that behavior that sort of tames them and makes them lose their fear of humans.
Yeah. And, I think, gosh, you're the expert, but I believe it was maybe a year or two that they actually came off the endangered species list. And while, of course, everybody celebrated, because I know growing up, we've done so much to get them off of that list, but we can easily take a swing in the wrong direction if we're not careful and we don't continue to maintain some of these rules and principles that got us to this place.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, while it might sound great, or it can be framed in such a way like, oh, they're off the endangered species list. Save the Manatee Club also thought that wasn't really the best decision at the time. Their population's not necessarily out of the woods, and they're everywhere, and we don't have to worry about protecting them or their habitat anymore. This decision was made without a plan to sort of reduce some of the risks and the threats that do continue with manatees, or without a plan to protect their habitat. Having a species on the endangered species list could mean if that species is in an area, that whole area is going to be completely protected. But if they're not on that endangered list, maybe then it could be okay for their habitat to be built upon or not protected in that same way. So it's sort of it's a tricky thing. Like, it sounds great, but it doesn't mean that, we don't have to worry about them anymore, or their habitat. Without their habitat, they're not going to survive.
Right, exactly. And yeah, so we try to talk about all the time, like things that we can do to help protect certain environments, like obviously clean up after yourself. If you go and spend any time outside, be aware of, like the things that you put on your skin as far as sunscreen or things like that. But what are some other things that we can do to help continue to recover the manatee population?
So, if anyone who's listening is a boater or knows someone who's a boater, goes out in the waterways of Florida and has a good time boating out there, and there's a lot of tips that you can follow to just watch out for and protect manatees. Being familiar with the area and boating slowly in shallower areas or areas where manatees might be present. Obeying the posted speed zones, like you were talking about, those signs that say, no wake zone, manatee zone. Just follow them. They're there for a reason. It's to be safe, and have someone on the boat watch out for manatees. they can be really tricky to see, and that's sort of the reason why they can be so vulnerable to these horrible accidents with boats. Is they're in a shallow area. They have to come up to breathe, but they can be hard to see in darker waters and stuff. So have someone who's out there sort of looking for their snouts or their tails or any sign of movement on the water. That could be a manatee. Wearing polarized sunglasses can actually really help you see them better in the water. It cuts the glare off the surface of the water. And then whether or not you're a boater, if you spend any time along the water, if you like to go to the beach, if you have a house on a dock, if you go get an Airbnb for the weekend on the water, save the number for the FWC right in your phone right now. You can do it. The number is 1-888-404-3922. Or just look up the FWC hotline. And so that way you have that handy if you do see a sick or injured manatee or other wildlife. You can report it to the officials, and they'll send a team out to check it out and determine if they need to rescue it or what the best plan of action would be. So, you can't abuse this hotline. If you're not sure, just call and report it. Anything you see about manatee that might seem off, if it's floating high in the water, if it looks really skinny, if there's something wrong with it, just call the FWC hotline. There are experts who can come check it out and see what the best thing to do is.
That's awesome. That's a great tip. I've never had the number in my phone, so now I'm going to program it.
Yep, save it in your phone. Everybody should. And, if you have a boat or something, Save the Manatee Club. We send out these stickers that you can keep on your boat that has that number. We have to send out these cards that have manatee tips, and you can keep that on your boat. So if you're not sure if something's wrong, you can look at the card and call the number. If anyone listening is interested in those, just go to savethemanatee.org, and there's a section there you can click on to request these resources. Another important tip, too, if maybe you're not a boater, you don't spend a lot of time here in Florida, you want to come check them out, like we were saying, choose a tour or a sightseeing tour, a Swim with Manatees tour that practices passive observation and is very eco-minded and has the manatee's best interests in mind. So just do your research and support an organization that really wants to protect the manatees.
Yeah, I love that. And, obviously, with all the precautions that we take, accidents can still happen, So I wanted to hear a little bit from you about what goes into rehabilitating a manatee in the event that there's some type of accident or injury, and what role do you guys play in that?
Sure. So let's say, you do see an injured manatee out there and you call that number. What will happen is that in Florida, the FWC or maybe some other partner agencies, they'll come check it out. And then there's a whole group called the Manatee Rescue and Rehabilitation Partnership. And it's a bunch of organizations and agencies that work together to rescue and take care of manatees. So let's say the manatee is injured and it does require treatment from a vet or an expert in a critical care facility. It might get captured and transferred to a facility like SeaWorld or Zoo Tampa, Miami Seaquarium, Jacksonville Zoo, Homosassa Springs. All of these facilities have veterinarians and experts on staff who will treat their injuries, whether that's from a boat strike or from being entangled in fishing line. Sometimes they'll rescue an orphaned calf. So it's a calf that's a little tiny manatee that would be all by itself, no other adults around. And manatees actually nurse for at least a year. They stay with their mothers for 1 to 2 years to feed and to just kind of learn how to be a manatee, where the warm water sites are, what to do. So if you see a tiny little calf all by itself, that would be a reason to call that hotline and have someone check it out and potentially rescue it. And so once these facilities have taken care of these manatees, they'll either determine, the federal government will determine if it's ready to be released back into the wild, or if not, then they're considered non-releasable and they might stay at like a long-term care facility. So that would be somewhere like Epcot's Living Seas. Mm-hmm. They have manatees there that are non-releasable, but we like to call them like sort of manatee ambassadors. So they help people learn about manatees in these facilities. So what Save the Manatee Club does to support all of this, we don't have any veterinarians on our staff, but we sort of help sponsor and fundraise for these efforts with this whole partnership. And we also educate the public about it with our website, our social media, everything that we do. We try to educate people, call this number, have people come check it out, and maybe they'll be rehabilitated. Maybe they'll be released back into the wild once they're healthy, and it's considered a success, and that's great. So it's this whole cycle with this amazing team of people who are all working to take care of wild manatees.
Yeah, and I think sometimes some of these, facilities and aquariums get kind of a bad rap, but we talk about a lot that a lot of these parks, regardless of how you feel about maybe keeping an animal in a zoo or the manatees at Epcot, like they might not be able to be re-releasable. There's a lot that also goes into preservation and conservation. So we always recommend, really getting an idea of like the whole picture and like holistically what a lot of these places are doing to not only entertain, tourists and locals alike, but what they're also doing to give back and help protect the environment that's here. So I'm glad
Absolutely.
you shared that.
I mean, some of these places have some of the most, expert, qualified people on their staff who are taking care of these animals. And they, like I said, they serve as ambassadors for the species as individuals. We actually, there's two manatees. Their names are Ariel and Betsy.
That's cute.
And they are part of Save the Manatee Club's Adopt a Manatee program, which I'll talk about later. But they live at Homosassa Springs Wildlife State Park on the Gulf Coast. Mm-hmm. And they're considered non-releasable. They've either were kind of raised in captivity or they have injuries that won't allow them to survive out in the wild. And they live in the park all the time. And people absolutely just love them. They go to see them. They help. They're part of these manatee programs that the park staff holds to educate people about them. So, it's like you said, it's important to think about the whole picture, and you can't just release all of these animals to the wild. They wouldn't survive. Instead, let's learn from them, which is awesome.
Yeah. And, I know you've talked a lot about some specific manatees. You've talked about little baby manatees that need our help. And I think that's what really gets people like, what can I do to help, maybe become a part of the Save the Manatee Club? Like, how can our listeners get involved with you guys?
Sure. So we have this program. It's called Adopt a Manatee. You might have seen something like this in other wildlife adoption programs where you're symbolically adopting an elephant in Africa or something like that. But all of the manatees in our Adopt a Manatee program are actually real individual manatees that we've studied and that we have recognized either in the wild or in a wildlife care facility like Ariel and Betsy that I was mentioning. So what you would do is your donation gives you this symbolic adoption of a manatee. You'll get a little certificate that says this is your manatee, a biography about your manatee, and then some other resources or membership handbook. So stuff that you can learn. It's a great gift. People love to give it to their friends, or we have a adoption for school classrooms too. You get to pick out these real manatees. Most of them in the program are manatees that we research and study year after year over in Blue Spring State Park in Orange City, which is sort of like Crystal River. It's a spring where the manatees spend their winter months. But we also have manatees that we study and make sightings on along the East Coast, in the Tampa Bay area, and actually even in Alabama. We have a manatee named Bama who shows up in Alabama every summer, and we work with people over there to identify Bama and let his adoptive parents know that there's been a sighting. So it's pretty cool. We'll send updates about your manatees, and it's exciting to think, they're really real individuals that are out there and that people are watching out for.
Yeah, and how fun that you get to, see them for a season and they leave and they go do their thing, and then you get to see them again next year.
It's cool. It's the reason that they are identifiable. You think, right, how can you tell these big giant animals apart? It's interesting, but it's a little sad. So when manatees do get into accidents with boats, maybe they'll be struck by a propeller or from a just an impact injury from a boat. It'll leave a scar along their huge backs, but these scars can make the individuals recognizable. So, there's this huge scar along a certain manatee's left side. Oh, that's, so-and-so the manatee. So that's how our researchers tell them apart year after year, is looking for these scars. So it's helpful for research, but it's a sad reality that most living manatees do have some sort of scar from these injuries.
Yeah, I'm looking actually on your website right now as you're talking, and I can kind of see some little marks on some of their backs and a little bit more about how you can adopt it. It kind of got me thinking, we're coming into the holiday gift giving season, and I think, so many people are looking for not only, like, I don't know, silly gifts this year, but like gifts that mean a little bit more. I think humans and animals alike have had a challenging year, and what a great gift it would be to give someone the gift of having adopted a manatee.
Oh yeah, it's really thoughtful and caring. It just shows, this is something that we can learn about. This is something that we could work together to help prevent. And people absolutely just love their adopted manatees. I mean, what else can you say? I got a manatee for my birthday. I got
Right.
a manatee for Christmas. So, you get that certificate and you can hang it up in your office or at home or whatever. Kids love it. That's actually how I found out about Save the Manatee Club. I was gifted an adoptable
wow.
manatee. So, it's thoughtful, and it's just something different. And what the funds do, like I said, it supports our organization. So it supports efforts to rescue and rehabilitate manatees, and that partnership that I was talking about, our public awareness efforts, all of the materials that we send out to individuals and organizations all over Florida. So it helps us just educate people here about this imperiled species.
It's cool. So I know that everyone's going to be wanting to figure out how they can engage a little bit more with you guys, learn a little bit more about the manatees. So tell us where they can find out more and how they can find you on social media.
For sure. So just to learn more, check out savethemanatee.org, or just search Save the Manatee. That's where you can adopt a manatee and just learn a little bit more about them. We have all kinds of videos, facts, interesting stuff for schools. And if you want to support us but you don't want to adopt a manatee, we have an Amazon wish list. So that's where you can purchase items off Amazon that go directly to some of these manatee critical care facilities and the other organizations that we work with to care for manatees. There's some items on there you can check out. If you want to support us but you don't want to donate, you don't want to adopt a manatee, there's a whole section on savethemanatee.org called Take Action, and it's all the different sort of activist things that you can do to support manatees and spread the word. So whether that's supporting actions or legislation that protects manatees or their habitat or other species, you can check that out, or you can just sharing our videos, sharing our photos with your friends, especially if you travel to Florida, if you live in Florida, if you have friends and family here. All of that just helps us spread the word and educate more people, because I found it's surprising how little we know about these animals that have been here so much longer than we have. Oh, and one last thing you can do too if you want to help out is volunteer for Save the Manatee Club. So if you want to give your time, we're always looking for more volunteers. I'm the volunteer coordinator here, so if you want to come to some of our events once they start happening again, we'd love to have you. If you want to help out online too, we are having volunteers present about manatees to school classrooms, other groups. If you like talking about manatees or you want to learn more, you can become a volunteer presenter. There's a couple of other opportunities that we have listed on our website. So volunteering is a great way to get involved, or if you think you'd like to work with manatees one day or just do your part in some way, definitely check out volunteering. It's an awesome experience.
Yeah, we're going to have to check that out. We were actually just trying to get into Blue Springs this week, but then Etta kind of put a a rein on our parade, so to speak. But yeah, definitely I think volunteering is an easy way to give back, if you don't have the money to invest. And we will totally be sharing all of your stuff on social media. I love even just some of the pictures that you guys get of these guys. So we're so excited to have our listeners become more engaged with manatees, safely observe them, and learn more about them. So, Ally, it was so awesome having you on today. I hope you had a good time with us.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Thanks so much for having us. I love talking about these creatures. Hopefully you guys learned a little bit more and can help spread the word. That's what we just really aim to do. So thank you so much.
Perfect. We will. Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.
Wow, she was so fun having on. It's crazy how, like, just when you think you know everything about manatees or even the ecosystem around here, you learn something else. And I hope you guys check out our friends at savethemanatee.org. And how fun that it was co-founded by Jimmy Buffett. I mean, that guy gets around. You know we love Key West, so I feel like we really came full circle on this one. I can't wait to check out and see what they do next. Stay tuned to our social media channels and theirs to see what the manatees are up to this season. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, I'm going to share with you some of the places that you can check out manatees around Florida this and every manatee season, and then some pro tips if you want to book yourself one of those excursions where you can get out into the water with them. So hang tight.
Wow, playing frisbee on the beach is the best.
I know! What a great day for fun in the sun! Why don't you come join us, Garrett? I know how much you love ultimate frisbee.
I'm actually going to sit this one out, guys.
Garrett, that's not like you. Is something wrong?
It's just that, it's really hot out, and my thighs, they're so clammy.
Oh, don't worry, bro. We've all been there. I've got just the thing in my beach bag. Try this Bala powder.
Powder? Steph, isn't that for babies?
Not this powder, Gare Bear. Whether you're enjoying an actual day in paradise or just grinding away and daydreaming of your next dip to come, Bala body products for men will keep you feeling fresh, comfortable, and smelling great. The finest Italian talc blend with all natural essentials and fragrances that will keep you chafe-free and walking confidently wherever your journey through paradise takes you.
Wow, Steph, you're right. I've never felt so fresh and comfortable. I'm gonna wear this at the office.
And it smells good, too.
All right, Garrett, go long.
Don't mind if I do, Steph.
All right, guys. So as promised, I'm going to share with you some places that you can hang out with manatees. And when I say hang out, for the most part, these are going to offer some places where you can kayak, where you can maybe take a boat tour, or you can even have some observation decks where you can chill and watch them kind of swim past you and graze and all the fun stuff that manatees do. So I think the most obvious place, and like we talked about a little bit in our interview, is Three Sisters Springs and Crystal River. And back in our Springs episode, we talked about this one because this is where you can actually get in the water and snorkel with manatees. And not just that, year-round, this spring is absolutely beautiful. And if you've never visited a spring in Florida, the water is literally like, my gosh, like bottled water. I mean, it's so crystal clear and so clean that you have pretty much 100% visibility unless you happen to accidentally disturb the bottom of the water. So it makes it a really great place to be able to see manatees because they're, I mean, my gosh, they're clear as day right there in front of you. If you want to kind of take things into your own hands and go at your own pace, there's a lot of places where you can rent kayaks or paddle boards and get out onto the water. Crystal River is the city, and Three Sisters Springs is where you would really go out and get your water activities on. Remember, if you are not on one of these tours, to really just observe from a distance. You don't want to touch, you don't want to interact, you surely don't want to feed them or coax them over to you. And of course, you don't want to startle them. One of the things that they talk about is, if you have a manatee and a manatee calf, you want to be really, really careful not to separate the baby manatee from its mom. So if you do something that might cause the mama manatee to swim away and leave the baby, that could get them, of course, in trouble, and you might prevent them from being able to be reunited. So you don't want to do that. You really just want to watch. But I think one of the coolest ways that you can get to experience the Florida manatee for yourself is to get in the water. So 2 places that we've been out with is River Ventures and Fun to Dive. We've been out with River Ventures twice. And they were awesome. Most recently, we went out with Fun to Dive because we got a little bit of a better deal on the excursion. The crew was great both times. They do a really nice job of making sure that you find manatees, because while they're pretty massive, it's shockingly difficult to find them in the water if you don't know what you're looking for. So they have the captain that will drive nice and slowly, and then they'll have the person that'll get out in the water with you and then is looking for them. So they'll get you up close and personal. They'll give you a whole nice tutorial and sort of orientation process before you go out so that you're comfortable and safe in the water. The manatees are comfortable and safe around you, and they teach you really what the best etiquette is for observing and interacting with them. You'll also get provided a wetsuit, because even though the water is 72 degrees, if you're going during manatee season and you're going out in the early morning, which is really the best time to see them, it could be 50, 60 degrees. You could have a breeze. You get into that 72 degree water. It's cool. You get out of the water and it can be pretty darn cold. We went last time a little bit later in the season and it's freezing. I'm sorry. It's too cold for me. So a wetsuit is handy. You could definitely bring your own if you have your own, which the producer likes to do because she doesn't want to be borrowing wetsuits from other people. But I'm like, whatever, put me in the wetsuit. So you can do that. Fun to Dive last time provided us with some hot cocoa for the ride back, which was really nice. And yeah, it's not super expensive. I think it was like 60 or 80 bucks a person. And this is like a once in a lifetime kind of experience, especially if you're not from the state. I would highly recommend, if you're in the area, that you do it. Also, guys, this is like with anything. When you go out on a snorkel trip, be a good swimmer. I mean, you don't have to be like the strongest swimmer. The wetsuits are going to make you a little bit buoyant. They're going to provide noodles so that you can just calmly sort of hover there in the water and not splash around and startle the manatees, but you still want to be able to swim. I can't tell you how many snorkel trips we've been on where at least one party on the boat doesn't know how to swim, and they're really not there to teach you how to swim or, add that other element of danger where, half of the boat is drowning the whole time. So be prepared to swim, be prepared to get in the water. And while safety is always of the utmost importance with these excursions, they're not going to be able to teach you how to swim in the hour or two that you're out there. So just be aware of that. Also, Blue Spring State Park is a big one where they come in. And they have a lot of facilities. Corona has put a damper on some of that stuff. I know some of the kayak rental options that they have aren't available, throughout the day. So make sure you check out their website before you make any plans, especially if it's out of the way for you. They also do a boat tour, which I believe is glass bottom, so you can see the manatees that way. But this place is notorious for the observation decks and boardwalks that they have. So you can go out, maybe bring a coffee with you, maybe have yourself a little picnic, and you can just watch manatees all day and take some cool pictures and make memories. And like I said, if you haven't been to a spring, whether there's manatees in the water or not, they're absolutely stunning. But, the manatees, of course, add that extra element. Like Ally said, I would definitely think about bringing polarized sunglasses with you, because while the springs are clear, you're still going to be able to add that extra level of visibility if you have your polarized glasses. So that's something I would always pack with you when you come down to Florida. There's some other cool places. If you check out visitflorida.com, Apollo Beach, Fort Myers, Titusville, and Riviera Beach all have some places where manatees like to come in, and you can catch a glimpse of them. Fort Myers is pretty unique in that across from the FPL, or the Florida Power and Light facility, I guess the power plant discharges some warm water into the canal, so manatees love to congregate there, and you'll find huge concentrations of them, several viewing areas, a butterfly garden, and even picnic tables. So check out Lee County Manatee Park for that if you happen to find yourself in Southwest Florida. All right, if you follow us on social media, you know we've got a lot of giveaways coming at you before the end of the year, so make sure that you keep checking out our page for your chance to win. And thank you so much for tuning in to Just a Podcast in Paradise. We know you have your choice of travel podcasts, and we thank you for choosing to travel with us. We would love it if you would subscribe so you don't miss an episode, and give us a 5-star review if you enjoyed your time with us today. You can also follow us on Instagram at Just Take a Dip for daily updates on what's happening around Florida, and check out our YouTube channel, Just a Day in Paradise, for destination ideas, restaurant reviews, unboxing things you might want to take on your next trip, and copycat recipes from some of our favorite places in paradise. We are wishing you a little bit of sunshine wherever you are, and we hope to see you in paradise soon. Say goodbye, Cricket. He says goodbye. Now I want to go swim with manatees. You want to go swim with manatees, Cricket? He's a pretty strong swimmer, but I don't know if you want to be with a manatee. Only one way to find out.